Welcome to Fairy Tales Where Women Pop Out of Fruit Part 2, where they also get murdered and go through tons of magical transformations before finally finding their happy ending. The first one, as you might have guessed, is called The Coconut Lady, and it's from India. So the youngest prince of 7 decides he needs to go find a wife because wives prepare the best food for their husbands and he's eating the food of his sisters-in-law, and that's just not good enough. So he goes out traveling and meets this holy man who says, okay, if you go to this coconut tree and get down a coconut, you're gonna have the most beautiful wife. So our guy goes and gets the coconut and just goes home. But on his journey home, he needs to stay the night somewhere. So he stops to stay at the home of a potter, someone who makes pottery. Now, similarly to the girls who turn into flower stories I've told, while he goes to sleep, the coconut turns into a woman, or a woman pops out of the coconut. Even though she is clearly a magical or made-up woman who has sprung from a fruit, she's wearing a red sari and is of high social status. Now, the potter's wife, who wants to change her low social status, decides she wants to switch places with her. So after tricking her into trading clothes, she hits her, drags her outside, drowns her in a well, and throws her body inside. So when the prince wakes up in the morning, the potter's wife pretends to be the woman who has sprouted from the coconut. No word on if her husband is around or sees this or what he thinks. But our guy doesn't know he was asleep, so he takes this woman back to his palace with him, thinking she's the wife meant for him. So like in the previous girl in fruit stories, the true bride goes through a lot of transformations. A beautiful flower grows out of the well, so before they leave and go back to the palace, the prince is like, oh, that's pretty, I'm gonna take it with me. But the false bride does not like that. So once they get there, she steals the flower and crushes up its petals and throws them out a window. But where she threw the petals, an amaranthus tree sprouts up. The false bride wants to eat the leaves for dinner, but when she gives them to the cook before he's about to roast them, the leaves start talking. The cook gets scared and runs away, and the leaves fly out and sprout another coconut tree. Now, a cattle herding boy pulls a coconut from the coconut tree and just takes it home one day. And that night, the lady springs out of the coconut and she gets adopted by his mom. One day, the prince takes his horse grazing near where these people live, and when the horse wanders near her, the coconut lady pets it and she leaves a golden handprint on it. The prince sees the horse with the golden handprint, goes back to where it must have gotten it, sees the coconut lady. She tells him everything that happened, so he marries her and they punish the potter's wife by immuring her, which means walling her in until she dies. There's another Indian one about pomegranates, and this one's cool because it's got a dragon in it. So it's still the same. A prince is looking for a wife and he meets a holy man who says, okay, you got to go to this island where a pomegranate tree is guarded by some dragons, but I'll turn you into a parrot so that you can fly there. But once you fly there as a parrot and get the pomegranate, you have to fly back and you can't look behind you at the dragon. So he turns the prince into a parrot, flies there, gets the pomegranate, and then he starts to fly back, but of course he forgets and he looks behind him, and as soon as he does, the dragon breathes fire on him and he's burnt to cinders and he dies. So the holy man, once he realizes he hasn't come back, makes himself invisible, which he can apparently do, and he goes to the island and finds his ashes / dead body and brings him back to life. And he's like, I told you, let's try this again. But this time he flies there as a parrot, gets the pomegranate, flies back, doesn't look back, and gets to the holy man's house. Well, the dragon has still followed him, so the holy man then turns him into a fly, and he goes either flying around or sitting on the wall, and the dragon comes inside and just talks like a normal person. He just comes in and says, where is the green parrot who stole my fruit? And the holy man's like, look around, I don't see a green parrot here, do you? And it says the dragon searched everywhere, but finding no green parrot or the pomegranate, went away. So then the holy man changes our dude back into a human, and he's like, all right, take this pomegranate, go back to your palace. When you open it, your bride will pop out. He takes it home, opens it, and this woman pops out who is so beautiful that the dude faints. And he's like unconscious. She can't wake him up, so she like puts his head on her lap to like rest. And then a lower caste servant woman comes along. And she like knew about the whole quest. She's like, oh my God, are you the fairy that came out of the pomegranate he was looking for? And she's like, yeah, that's me. And like the potter's wife, she gets her to change clothes with her, and then she goes and kills her and throws her in a well. And when the prince wakes up, he realizes that it looks a little bit different than he thought before, but she's wearing the same clothes, and so like, you know, who else could it be? Now, our girl has turned into a white lotus in the well, which again, the prince finds, but the false bride tears into pieces. She throws it outside, a bed of mint grows up where it was. The cook plucks the mint and goes to make a meal with it, and like the leaves, it starts to just cry and scream about the false princess princess. Cook gets scared, throws the mint leaves away, a tree springs up from where the mint leaves were, and a gardener's daughter finds the fruit from the tree, brings it home. Our girl springs out, lives with the gardener and their family instead of a cattle herder like with the coconut. But here it gets a little bit different. So one day the gardener's daughter and our girl weave these flowers together to take to the prince, and when the prince sees her flower wreath, he somehow knows that it must be the fairy and that the woman he married is not the fairy. So the false bride pretends to be sick and tells her husband the only thing that can cure me is eating the heart of that beautiful woman that lives with the gardener's family. So orders are given for her execution and her new family weeps most bitterly, but the authorities execute her. But right before she wants her 4 limbs sent to be scattered to the 4 winds, and so they do, and they give her heart to the princess. But when our girl is getting thrown into the air, all her body parts, her eyeballs become 2 lovebirds. One day the prince is out hunting and he hears the 2 birds telling the whole story of the fairy's life. And he's like, oh my God, you guys are my wife. Come down and be my wife again. And magically she does. The 2 birds transform into the woman. The punishment for the false bride in this one is that she is buried alive next to the well where she murdered our girl. And a nice little detail, she also goes back and visits the gardener and his family all the time and is still a part of their lives, and they're all just really happy. There's a Hungarian one where the girl doesn't come from fruit really, but I have to include it because it's the same in every other way. It's called Lovely Ilyanka, and in this one she springs from bulrushes. This one it's an old woman who helps the prince looking for a wife, and he's very polite to her, and she says, "It is lucky for you, you spoke to me so kindly, or you would have met with a horrible death." I actually just love this lady. She blows on her pipe and a bunch of magpies spring up everywhere. And one of them has like a broken wing and leg, and she's like, follow the crippled one. So they follow it to these bulrushes, and she's like, okay, take 3 of these. So he takes them and starts the journey home. And as he's going home, one of them kind of knocks against the cart, and a woman springs out. And she says, "My heart's love, you are mine and I am yours. Give me a glass of water." But he's like, I don't have any. And she flies away. He splits the second bulrush as an experiment. Same thing happens. And he's like, okay, I'm going to be careful with this last one. So he waits until they get to a well, and then he splits it open. The woman comes out. He gives her water from the well, and it's all good. He says, okay, stay with this swineherd whose well it is, and I'm going to go get you fine clothes and a fine carriage and stuff, and I'll come back for you. But while he's gone, the swineherd's daughter, who is jealous, murders her and takes her place. And in this one, actually, the whole family's in on it. The swineherd, his wife, and the daughter. So when the prince comes back, he can tell he's been cheated and something doesn't seem right, but there's nothing he can do about it, so he takes the false bride home. So like in the other stories, the way they had killed her was drowning her in a well, but now this white duck comes out of the well. The white duck crawls out, turns into a woman, gets a job in the castle. She keeps trying to sneak to the king's room at night to tell him who she is, but the false bride keeps drugging him every night. Something that happens in a lot of fairy tales. Well, finally, our girl gets 2 guards to warn the guy, don't drink what your wife gives you tonight. And this time when she sneaks to him, he's awake, and she tells him the whole story. He marries her and has the swineherd, his wife, and daughter all hung. The end. Now, if you're wondering, are there ever versions where men pop out of fruit? No, but there's a great one I have to tell you where a woman creates a man out of a bunch of different materials. This is actually another Basile story, the Italian author who did the 3 oranges in my previous video. It's called Pinso Malto, and it starts like a lot of fairy tales where a dad is going on a journey and he asks his daughter if she wants anything brought back. She asks for Salerno sugar, sweet almonds, 6 bottles of scented water, a little musk and amber, 40 pearls, 2 sapphires, a few garnets and rubies, some golden thread, and a trough with a little silver trowel. The dad's like, that's a lot and specific, but okay. And he brings those things to her. When he brings them back, she shuts herself in her room and uses them to create her perfect man. Now, at first, he's just a statue she has made out of all this stuff, but then she prays to the goddess of love to make him come to life, and in a very Pygmalion fashion, he does. She names him Pinso Malto, she takes him to her dad, and she's like, "Dad, I made the perfect man for me, can I marry him?" And he's like, "Sure," so they get married. But at the wedding ceremony, this other woman wants him, and it said Pinso Malto, who had only opened his eyes on the wickedness of the world 3 hours before, was too innocent to understand, and she basically kidnaps him. Then our girl has to go through similar trials involving sleeping potion to get him back. And she does, and they live happily ever after. Check out my book, Dust Spells, a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and my podcast, Folktales and Fairy Lore. Link is in the bio.